If you didn't watch last video, I'd highly recommend going to watch it right now. I'll leave a link somewhere at the top of the video, so just click that, watch the video, and you'll understand exactly what is happening in this video. But essentially, last video was like basically the first part, stripping everything that needed to be replaced, and in this video I'm putting it all back together and doing it the correct way and the professional way, let's say. I messed up quite badly. I dropped one bolt that essentially turned a straightforward job into a 3-hour nightmare trying to find this one bolt. I'm not going to say what it is, you'll have to watch and find out, but if you have half an idea what this job is, you already know what bolt I have dropped. But I don't want to waffle too much in the intro. If you do enjoy this video, please hit the like and subscribe. Comment what you want to see on this channel next. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So one thing I didn't actually do in the last video or show on camera was me actually removing the coil packs and the spark plugs. The reason for this was the walnut blast in the valves. You can just kind of see the piston, making sure nothing's actually falling down on the piston, because when you're messing with the valves underneath and the pistons as well, so if anything falls in, i.e. peanuts or just any dirt or debris or any rubbish, you know, it's better to be safe than sorry. This is what I'm going to say. So I started off putting all 4 plugs in. Always do them up by hands first. Don't ever attempt to put it in with a gun or an electric ratchet or even a ratchet first. Always do it up by hand, because if you cross thread them, you're in so much trouble, it is unbelievable. As you can see, once I'd started them, I then put the electric ratchet on, then decided to put all the coil packs in and then actually plug the coil packs in so they work. Trying to actually fit the sensors back into the coil pack was a bit fidgety as well. However, after a bit of persuasion, they all went in. And then you have to connect the earths all back up, all handy dandy. For some reason the footage for actually putting the oil cooler on was corrupted, so I've just had to kind of record this bit. The oil cooler is very straightforward anyway. It's just generally 4 bolts. Make sure it's all lined up properly. The 2 on the engine side are quite fidgety. However, the front 2 are really easy to get to. Make sure the rubber bunge is back in, so where the water pump connects to the oil cooler. Otherwise, it's just going to be a mess. You'll have to take it all back off and then put it back in. So just you've got to remember one thing about the oil cooler. Remember the little rubber flange thing. Don't actually know what it's called. That's just what I call it anyway. Next is the water pump. Water pump is a little bit fidgety as well. You got to just move the cables. Make sure no cables are trapped either. While I was doing this, my dad was basically putting the sensor back in. We had to take all the battery tray off anyway, simply for the fact that the bolt had snapped inside the head, so we had to get the sensor and bolt out. But you couldn't do that without taking the battery out. So here's me just checking that there's no wires trapped underneath the water pump, otherwise again it will have to come all back off. And them a bit annoying. If there's one slightly trapped, you can just pry it out with a screwdriver. Make sure you don't damage it or anything. Just do it gently. Another trick as well for when you're putting the water pump belt back on, make sure the pump isn't screwed in or anything. You can still move it freely, and then get the belt on and then put it on. Trust me now, it makes life so much easier. This is the 3rd one. It's been on and off this car, and the last 2 times we've done it this way, and it's just been a treat. As you know, them stretchy belts, if anybody has experience with stretchy belts, you know that they're the worst sort of belts. But again, if you don't do it, you can still do it without doing it this way, but this way just makes it so much easier. Because otherwise you're going to be sat struggling for quite a while, and that's not what you want to do. So after the belt is on anyway, I started bolting up the actual water pump. It's just 5 bolts, 3 on the top, 2 on the bottom. 2 on the bottom are a bit fidgety, them a bit underneath, hidden. If you can get under the car, it's a lot easier to see them. The top 3 are really easy to get to be fair. The job as a whole is really easy. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd generally set it at about a 6. once you've done one, if you have any mechanical knowledge, you'll be fine. If you've done more than one, you'll definitely be fine. If you're a bit like new and you've never worked on cars before, I wouldn't jump to doing this job myself, but it's not hard. It's just a fairly long job and a fairly fidgety job. But again, make sure it's all tight, otherwise you're just going to leak water anyway. Next is the belt cover. Belt cover is just 2 bolts, that's all it is. I can't remember what size they am. This was about 3 weeks ago now I've done this job. But again, the front one's really easy to get to, but the bottom one is just covered in a load of water pipes. So you've got to move them to get to it. As you can see, you can literally just push it down and you can push the water pipes down and you'll be fine, and you'll just be able to get onto it. And then the water pump is all complete, oil cooler is all complete and tight. It's all good. You don't want to over tighten them and snap the bolts either, you just want to make sure they're tight. I had to use a 1/4 inch ratchet for this as well, so obviously I lost a lot of power because the torques that I had was only 1/4 inch torque, so I couldn't find anything bigger. And the fact how tight some of these spaces are, you can only get in with a 1/4 inch anyway. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to be going in with a big massive impact gun or anything, because 1, you wouldn't fit, and 2, it's just going to break everything. So after the actual pump and the belt is all connected and tight, you want to make sure to put all the pipes on. Now you got to make sure these are tight. Also, another tip, if you're new, try and just take a picture of where the clips was, because a lot of the time the rubber's actually marked by the clip from how long it's just been sat there. But if it's not, just take a picture on your phone, and if it's in roughly the same place, you know you're all right. The front water hose here, the top one, was really hard to get on for some reason. The pipe itself went on fine, but the Jubilee clip was just not cooperating with me. Have some persuasion though. Make sure it's all plugged in as well. Definitely make sure it's all plugged in, otherwise you're going to waste so much time. Next is actually the inlet manifold itself. Again, got to move a load of wires, got to wiggle it into place. It's not just drop it in and it's fine. I also found the injector wires just out, and I forgot what was off until I looked at the back and realised it was just coincidentally 4 injector plugs that wasn't plugged in. I'd forgot I'd completely taken them off, but I got all them back on because I'm going to be a bit hard to do it with the inlet on. Obviously a lot of the time I'm going to have to do it with it on anyway, but if you can do it while it's off, it's so much easier, believe me. Another massive tip for the inlet when you're putting that back on, make sure no wires and no water hoses are trapped, otherwise it's coming back off to untrap them. You have a lot of stuff to kind of watch out for, because you have a lot of fuel pipes and the fuel rail and the water pump and the radiator hoses, loads of hoses and pipes for different stuff surrounding the inlet, and you want to make sure none of them are crushed and they're all quite, you know, loose and free. You'll know when it's right because the pins will just slot straight in. This is where I messed up massively. So as you can see here, the top half is going in fine. The top 5 bolts, just be a bit slow, don't rush it, to make sure they go in. Tighten them up by hand first and then do it with a ratchet afterwards. The top 5 went in fine, and then the bottom is where it might have went a little bit downhill pretty quickly. So one tip is either use a magnet or a piece of tissue paper in the torques to hold the screw in place. I was doing the tissue, but I wasn't using a magnet, so only using the tissue and no magnets for the bottom ones for some reason, because I thought I was cleverer than I actually was. Then cost me 3 hours of my life as I watch it drop all the way down. That then cost me 3 hours of my life because I wanted to rush and just get the car off, but then it made it even worse and I had to just, oh, it was such a stupid mistake from myself. I decided to do a quick service as well because I took the oil filter off anyway, and it just saves it going back on the ramp in about 3 months time anyway. I took the oil filter off obviously because it helps getting the left side bolts in a lot easier, but I thought, well, I'll just drain the oil as well, do a proper service on it and get it, you know, tip top. So when we finally got the bolt out anyway, it's time for the more complicated parts. At this point now, the inlet, water pump, oil cooler, all pipes are connected, fuel, water, air, all that stuff's connected. All I have to do now is plug in the computer and open the thermostat so I can flush the system, because the initial reasoning for doing this whole thing was because oil was mixing with my coolant. So therefore there's going to be a lot of oil residue in places that it shouldn't be. So just best to clean it all out, so then when you put new antifreeze in, it's all nice and sweet, pretty much. Here's our computer. It's a Maxicom Autel. It's a pretty posh computer. It's sick. It does everything you actually want it to do, including coding literally everything you want. But on this one, we had to use it obviously to open the thermostat so the water can get all the way around the system and push out all the bad stuff. Essentially what you do is you put a hose in the fat end, what's the bottom end, and you just turn the pressure up, and after a little bit, if it's clear it means it's just pure water, whereas if it's still pink it means it's antifreeze. So there's still stuff in there, but I wanted to get everything out. One thing I didn't actually record me doing was the fact that once you have done this, we disconnected the radiator hoses to flush all that water out, but I didn't record it like an absolute donut, so because that was a nightmare itself. The clips didn't want to move. Then I installed the brand new coolant bottle all the way from TPS. Well, again, easy, 2 pipes and a cap and a sensor, that's all it is. And then some beautiful fresh, I think it was probably a 70-30 mix of antifreeze, to be honest. It was a pretty strong mix. Normally it's like 50-50 or something. This was a bit stronger. But that is going to basically be it for this video. If you did obviously enjoy, please hit the like and subscribe. That is how you do the complete job, from changing the oil cooler to changing the water pump to removing and installing the intake manifold, the temperature sensor, because there is 2. That's the one on the actual head, there's one on the radiator. So if you have that fault code, it might not be that, but it's got a 50% chance of being that. But as always, I hope you all have enjoyed this video. There's a playlist to the Scirocco in the description to see exactly what has been done to this car, including the mods and some of the maintenance to it as well. But yeah, I'll catch you all next time.